All right, what's up, y'all? My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. A clothing company, yeah, but we address the human body's natural function. We come at it through the skeletal system. The only thing that doesn't change. The fat content changes, the muscle mass changes, but the body's just about a neutral position in every joint, and it has to stay that way. And then it just works as a whole, activated through its entirety, as if it were never to be altered. But we place clothing onto our bodies, and it can cause chronic scar tissue, patternings, a lot of imbalances. So we need to keep clothing centered, and we will do that with products that we have available when In the Image Clothing Company clothing, staying centered, fitting correct, being made out of 100% natural materials, and that's how we allow the human body to work. But you don't have to purchase clothing from us. We show free modifications within clothing that you've purchased from other people, but we address the human body in all the ways that it physically does anything on this earth. And there's a center line to it because Earth pulls us down with gravity. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and the jaw stabilizes the entire body naturally, so it has to stay centered. And we just really give the truth on how to let that be the case. There's 4 sides to us as a whole. And I'll talk about all 4 sides. We'll talk about where clothing has to sit, and then we'll get into this discussion because it's going to be a really good one. So, there's one other fourth of our company, which is In the Image Clothing Company podcast, with discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things. And I get bold, blunt, deep, real. Today's the 20th of April, 2025. It's actually Easter. So, we have another third of us, which is actually a fourth, but we introduced the newest side to us just a few days ago, so I'm still getting used to it. But one of the fourths that I haven't mentioned yet is In the Image Clothing Company music, where I address sizings and setups of guitars to not alter the hands. Our hands are essentially our shoulders, as the feet are essentially our hips. The body has to work as a whole. It only works all together, and we can't alter that while we play guitars. We have another fourth of us, which is In the Image Clothing Company dogs, the newest fourth, and I love it so much. I will be breeding standard poodles. We talk about letting dogs stay natural. There's dehydrated foods, unnatural materials in all sorts of dog accessories and collars, leashes, harnesses that can be very imbalanced. And as we talk about with the human body needing to stay unaltered, dogs do as well. And dogs are family. So there's a whole side to us devoted to that. It's so awesome. Now here's the thing. Clothing for everybody has to sit in the same location. If you're a man, a woman, if you're tall or short, skinny or fat, any part of the earth or any time period, you're just a human being. And the pants need to be all the way up off of the hips so they don't alter the hips at all. Slightly higher in the front than the rear with the waistband angle to keep these core muscles contracted, shortened, as they always naturally would be. The tops that we wear, the seams on top of our shoulders need to be evenly behind the bones on the peak of our shoulders because our shoulders only ever work behind our head. The edges of the seams of our tops should be ideally right at the very edges of our shoulders. This one for this specific shirt that I'm wearing could be slightly smaller on the edge seams, but that's where the shoulder function is. Okay, I love this shirt and it's great in many ways, but it is a little bit too wide for me at the shoulders. So 2 things we have as prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company: shoelacing and tags. We're just weaving ropes across the top of our feet, and there's only one way to do it. Call it a shoelace and not alter the feet, and they're only workings, they're only neutrals, and just keep the body working from its foundation. That's what we call In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique. Found wherever you find us, 5 words as a whole, In the Image Clothing Company. It looks just like this, but if you want to see how to actually do it, right? With that, we have to tie our shoes evenly over toward the inside on both feet. There's a center line to the human being, and there has to be, as we discussed. So, removing all tags is a must. If there is anything placed within clothing, like a tag, it's either causing a physical gap, changing the body's skeletal system's only working positions, and or just not allowing musculature to activate. And then the body's trying to compensate, but it can't because it's all one. Okay? Included within shoes. Tags. Okay? So, yeah. In the Image Clothing Company, we do so much here. We're not just about clothing by any means, but we don't just address the human body's physical function by any means. We have a lot to all the sides of us that we have. So check us out because it applies to everybody. Every human to ever live will be benefited from what we discuss and talk about and show here, free information we give. So, yeah. All right, that brings us to this video, and I kind of forgot. I forgot what the topic of this video is. We got through the intro, and I was like blanking on what this video's title was going to be. Seriously, that's funny. Yeah. I really, as of right now, don't even remember. I started it, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. And now, I really don't even know for sure. That's so crazy. Yeah, that's nuts, because if I think about it, we'll be able to do a video 30, 40 minutes, an hour, whatever it needs to be. I just need to remember what it's about. That's so weird. Yeah, that's weird. That's weird, dude. That's so strange. I've made 3 or 4 videos sitting right here, and I haven't gotten up since, but I'm not even sure what this video is about. That's crazy. You know what, though? If you've sat through this minute, give or take, of me trying to figure out, then thank you. Because we give information here that applies to everybody. And so it's as real as it gets. What we're going to talk about is looking up. Because here's the thing. I was thinking about this because today's actually Easter 2025. I was in church today, and because I've thought about this, but you actually have to look down with your head to a degree to be able to look up with your eyes. And so here's the funny thing about it. People who have a position of their head that's not neutral and just normal, then in that case, what they actually have is their head up more, because that actually takes the spine and excessively curves it and deactivates your core. And so I've been thinking about this, and this is just how it is. When you look up, you have to actually have your head down in order to look up. Otherwise, you're going to look at the sky. And okay, there's times and places for that. But as far as looking around and then like looking up at something, you have to be able to have your head down for your eyes to go from where your neutral position of your head is up from there. Otherwise, you're actually looking with your eyes straight ahead when your head is like this. And you're looking at something that's up there, right? Because the head is neutral here, okay? And then from here, we can look with our eyes up. And so what happens often is people, I think, get the idea that they need to try to lift their chin. And that's actually just going to take your body into a further incorrect position that you're already in if you're trying to address something. Yeah. What'll happen is, if you have a tag in the rear of your shirt collar, it's causing a gap, curving your spine away from that tag. Your cervical spine, the part of your spine that is your neck right here. And so that's actually putting your chin up. And now to look at the world or the earth or whatever's around you, you have to actually look down. So people are actually looking down chronically with their eyes while their head is up. So what we need to realize is, well, me right now, I wasn't doing that out of, like, for the sake of this video, but like when I'm sitting here, we actually want our chin down. This spine back here, when I say this spine, this part of it, the cervical, it needs to be able to get from this curved, unnatural position to a neutral position and straighten out in the back, okay? Now it's neutral. Now our body just works. And from here, neutral, you're naturally kind of looking up a little bit with your eyeballs at things when you're neutral. But your head is actually down slightly. Your eyebrow angle, if you will, is kind of like slightly down, because that's how you keep your spine neutral. And so it starts there, if we're starting discussing it there, with one of our two prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company: removing the tag that's potentially in the rear of your collar, so you can actually get your spine neutral. And now you can look up with your eyes. But what happens also is, I've talked about the nose and how important it is to be able to scrunch your nose, because people who have so much scar tissue built up in their nose, as I have, even last night, laying in bed, I was using my finger and just breaking up the scar tissue that's between the bone of what you would call the nose, that's just the skull, and then the actual skin here that we know of as the nose. I'm breaking up this scar tissue here, and majority on the right side, because that's the side that's so inhibited in human beings, because right-handedness in all the ways. Clothing patterns are right-handed. The world is geared around using right hand using your right hand. So it's mostly the right side of the nose that's bound up, as it is the right side of the entire body that's bound up for these reasons, for every human to ever live, even if you are left-handed. And yes, so being able to scrunch your nose then allows your head to get neutral, your spine to be neutral, and now you're looking slightly down with your physical skull so that your eyes can look up. And you need to be able to have all this area here above your eyes, like between your eyebrows and throughout your whole nose. It needs to be able to move and have motion to it. The head, let's look at this, right? The skin on our head, it's all one. The skin from your, before I even finish that, and I will, the skin on the entire body is all one. So when we do something like a rotation, the skin under my hand here, under my left hand where I'm gripping, this skin is all staying in the same spot but my bones in my arm are rotating, as you can see. But the skin here isn't moving. I'm holding it really still. With the skull of the human being, it's a bone, and multiple bones in the ways that it is, like the jaw here, the lower jaw is its own bone, as the bones within the arm are their own bones. And so the skull can move, like these bones in the arm, without the skin on the outside of it moving. But it needs to be able to. We need to be able to have motion and fluidity, meaning fluidness, like when you pour water and it just flows through the entire body so that it can be unrestricted. And when we talk about scar tissue built up in the areas that it is, well, scar tissue builds up here along the nose and all the way up in here into the eyebrow, because if you feel where your eyebrow hairs are, they're just right on the surface of this bone that's above our eye, right? The eye socket is this whole bone area, and it's a hole where the eyes are within. And so when we move our physical skull, the bone and bones of the head, the skin outside of it needs to be able to move. And so when we can't move the skin here, then we can't look with our eyeballs without actually moving our head physically, our structure of our skull, to look with the visual system of our eyes. This is as real as it gets. And so what I'm saying is, this tag in the rear of the collar or shoulder seams sitting in an incorrect position, right? It will just change the way that the skull and all the skin encapsulating it interact with each other. As I'm showing here with the nose, it just gets stuck into place because the motion that's lacking back here at the cervical spine on the rear of our neck, it goes to the front of the body at our nose, between our eyes, and even all these muscles within the head here above the eyebrows that allow us to raise and lower the eyebrows. There's musculature all across the skull, really, really thin little muscles between the skin of the scalp and the actual bone of the skull. And so I don't know how well you can see necessarily because I'm not looking at the screen right now, but I can wiggle my ears and move the skin all along the top of my head from my eyebrows up. I can scrunch my nose. When I smile, all my cheek skin here is moving, and everything on the surface of the skull has to be able to move. Otherwise you have restriction to just motion of the body itself that doesn't stop just in the physical head, but it goes through the rest of the body because compensation will be happening. And this can happen from things like shoes, heels on shoes, uneven shoe tying, which would be this way rotation wise, and uneven shoe lacing that affects the arches. And then all the things, right? Things at the pelvis, things at the shoulders, things at the hands. The body is just a whole, and it has to continue to work that way. So in order to look up, which is actually how we would naturally be as far as visually with our eyes looking up a little bit. And it changes depending on the height of the human being, because somebody who's taller is going to look at things at a different angle than somebody who's shorter. But to keep the spine neutral, our eyes would naturally be slightly up, like this. Because when you're sitting here, to have a neutral spine and keep the core muscles contracted, it's actually curved like this, right? Like I'm sitting. And so because of that, the spine just comes into the base of the skull. It'll just put the head down. So now to look, you're just looking up. I'm exaggerating the angle of my head right now to show, but that's just how it is. You're naturally, I'll just look around naturally. Notice my eyebrow angle, like I was discussing, it's slightly down because that way my spine is still neutral. my body's still neutral through all of it. So this is just how the body works from the eyes. And the big thing with the eyes is we navigate through our eyes. And so if you can't have just normal motion of your actual eyeballs, right? Being able to look in all directions, ideally just completely evenly, both sides and up and down and corners, right? If you can't do that, your body and its physical motion throughout like your feet and your hands, meaning all the way to the extremities, it will be altered because you need to be able to see where you're going. And so, yeah, you need to be able to look up to actually keep your spine neutral. And what happens in modern day is we have a lot of stuff that we're looking down at in our hands. And so you're training all the muscles on the front of your face, right, to look down. And because of that, it's like what I was discussing, the skin on your face is the same skin as on the rear of your head. The rear of your head is the top of your spine. And so training your eyes themselves to look down all the time, meaning if we're doing it often, it's training a patterning. There's a neutral to everything within the body, as we talk about, and there's a neutral angle the eyeballs themselves will look, because then it's correlating with the neutral body. Otherwise, we're using so much excess work and energy and muscle activation to excessively look one direction out of our neutral for an extended period of time, whether it is left or whether it is right or whether it is up, which is probably the least common for everybody, but it's almost always in modern day down. And so now all your muscles on your face and the skin that needs to look up, to work, to smile, to even breathe, to visually look up, to get your spine in the position we're talking about, all that is affected because we're chronically, if it's the case, looking down. Because when you smile, your cheek skin and muscles here, they have to come into your eye area. And you can see it happening. I'm looking down right now versus looking up. When we go outside and it's bright, sometimes we squint like this. If you're doing anything in life and it's not in your only neutral that any part of the body does have, because every part does, at least for the majority of all of the time that you're doing anything, then you're training a patterning in only one end of the neutral. Okay? So we need to look neutrally with our eyeballs to keep our head neutral. Otherwise, it never could be. You can train things like posture all you want, and if you don't address the actual visual system of where your eyeballs themselves are looking, you will never get things like your spine to be neutral. Never. It just couldn't happen. The body only works as a whole. And you'll never address the arches in your feet and keeping your feet actually pointing the direction you're going, neutral, out from that pinky toe, straight forward, like the pinky finger of our hands, neutral. That will never happen if you don't address your eyeballs themselves. And really what that means is all the musculature around them that allows the eyelids, which is the skin here, to move. Because you're not going to be able to look up if the eyelid, which is the part that closes over your eyes, is chronically used to being down here. You can't look up because you can't raise your own eyelids, right? To raise your eyelids, you have to raise your eyebrows. To raise your eyebrows, you have to move the muscles that you can see moving on my forehead To move those muscles, you have to move all the muscles on the top of your scalp that you can see, my skin on my scalp and the muscles on the exterior of my skull move. They all have to move to keep my spine neutral to look up. I mean, the body only works as a whole. This is In the Image Clothing Company. That's why I use the phrase as real as it gets. And so, yeah, like look at this. Muscles here in my cheeks contracting upward. Lower eyelids coming upward, upper eyelids going upward, and my body's very neutral here. Like look at the rotations that I have here. If I look down, it just changes the entire body. Because if my head goes out of its neutral, now my eyes, looking in the same location, have gone out of their neutral, right? Everything follows everything else within the body. It's as obvious as it is once you see it, is another phrase that I use, because posture comes down to things like cartilage in the ears, cartilage in the nose that I've discussed within this. This is really what the human body is about. It's a sensory machine. It's a physical, mechanical machine. It only will ever do what it does, and God designed it, so we can't decide it. So there you go. That's the eyes. Yeah. The tongue naturally has that suction to the roof of the mouth, just resting there, because naturally our mouth would stay open slightly. Lips slightly parted, tongue relaxed, jaw stabilizing, spine neutral. But if you can't get the musculature to support itself, then your jaw is being overworked, and it can be coming from your eyeballs because you've trained looking down rather than staying neutral. And the things that aren't your fault. Tags in clothing just being imbalanced, changing the ways that your physical eyeballs themselves will sit. But things like chronically using things in our hands that we're so infatuated with looking at in modern day, it's damaging your whole life, and it'll stay with you unless we address breaking up the scar tissue. No joke. So there you go. That's the eyes. And I'm not exactly sure what this video is going to be titled. If it's titled something slightly different than what I said at the part of this video that was after the intro, when I realized what I would talk about, then okay, right? Because this is not what I was planning on making right now, but I'm glad that I did, because this is what this will need to be. I mean, I've given the discussion that I would give on the eyes for In the Image Clothing Company. It's as real as it gets. So it's Easter, as I said. So grateful, man. Yeah, so grateful. And I don't know what this will be titled yet. As you can tell by my stutter, I don't stutter often, and unless I don't know for sure. But if it is titled something like How Clothing Affects the Eyes, because I don't think that I've done a video like that yet. I just like to say in the intros, if I do say the title, I like it to line up with what it's actually titled afterward. But it's okay for this because of the way that this was structured. I think that might be what this is how clothing affects the eyes. Because we need to be able to look evenly, man. And when you're looking, you can kind of see your nose a little bit. And so if we've been looking chronically in a certain area or direction of our life for X amount of time, then, right, patternings, and it needs to be centered. The human body is something that does have two sides to a center on an earth with gravity. So, yeah, things like tags and hats. Yeah, there's a video under the main site here of In the Image Clothing Company titled How Hats Affect Body Mechanics. I talked about that tags do what they do no matter where they're placed against the human skin. But all the musculature that I was talking about that's between the actual physical skull bones and the skin, that musculature can get very bound up where the tags placed within hats, or the parts of hats that clasp in the rear, or if you're wearing them backward, right, the musculature here on your forehead, and then you can't move the musculature that's actually on your physical skull, and so you won't be able to look with your eyeballs, because just watch me look. I'm just sitting, right, neutral body, legs are neutral, ankles are neutral, wrists and arms and spine, core, I'm centered. Right here I am, just a human being, centered, looking directly straight forward. Watch all the face and ears. Right now I'm wiggling my ears. I don't know if you can quite tell from where the camera's at, but watch it all move. The forehead, my cheeks, my nose. Okay, well, from right now forward for this part, I'm just going to look with my eyes only and not try to change anything, but just look around with my body physically all staying in the same spot, but my eyeballs themselves looking around. Now, when I'm doing that, it really does take a lot of musculature all throughout just to allow it to happen. And we don't know these kind of things if we don't know them. So that's why we have In The Image Clothing Company. Yeah. Speaking truths, things that apply to every human to ever live, this video can apply to human beings for literally ever. When I say can, I just mean it does. And if someone comes across it, there you go. So that's why they're long. I say that, I give that context when I do, but that's why In The Image Clothing Company videos sometimes are quite lengthy, because if we've said it, it'll never change, so I usually document it pretty thoroughly. There you go. The eyes to see. We have a lot of unnatural things nowadays though, man. Unnatural lighting that just isn't real, and our eyes get strained. And when your eyes, as in your vision, like the eyeballs themselves, are being strained, it's musculature within the entirety of your skull that I've been talking about, all these muscles, that's actually taking effect. Because when you squint, because your eyeballs themselves are hurting, because you're looking at something that's not natural for them, you squint muscles. Squinting is just closing all these musculature forms. All the muscles that are around your eyes, into your cheeks, through your nose, and your forehead, and your whole scalp. All those muscles closing your eyelids to try to help your eyes not be so strained visually, like the actual eyeballs themselves. So it's a physical thing. The body is a physical thing. We're just spirit children of God placed onto an earth. If we don't have the physical body, we don't have this physical life. And it comes down to things like the eyes. Ideally, you should be able to wink with both eyes. And I can now. Yeah. Because right now I can only see out of my right eye because my left one's closed. And right now I can only see out of my left eye because my right one's closed. And like I said, even as of last night, I was doing releases here to my nose to allow this to be the case. Because I'd be keeping my right eye open, but also, right, it's as real as it gets. This is what I mean. If the right side of your body's dropped, more external, a knot at the shoelace, right-handed drawstring twisting the hips, oversized clothing falling to the dominant side, the dreaded collar seam on the left side of clothing, all these things that place the right side lower, these muscles here on the right side of our face, in order to wink, closing our right eye and keep the left one open, you notice what happened? The whole right side of the body has to elevate. It has to come up, because that's literally what's happening to close the eye, is these cheek muscles are coming up. And so it's as real as it gets. This internal rotation that's needed on the right side has to be on the right side to get the right side elevated. That's the only way you're ever going to wink with the right side of your eye closed, meaning your right eye closed, so your left eye can be the only one open. I could never do that in the past, and I can do it right now. My right eye is entirely closed, and I can see out of my left. It's because of clothing. I'm speaking out of personal experience right now as if I'm just telling you my own journey that has happened to allow me to now wink with both eyes. But it's kind of harder depending on where my right arm is placed. This is as real as it gets. The body's just a hole. It's just a mechanical thing, dude. So, yikes, right? But even that, I mean, you've got things like photographers that are so commonly like this. I used to have a professional camera and I would do photography. And I was like this in the viewfinder, that little window that you look through to take photos. I was doing this often. Look at my body here. If I take my hands down, I'm just external on my right side and dropped in the right side of my face. My jaw's uncentered. All of that just because of my eye, right? Don't agree with me. Don't believe us under In the Image Clothing Company, as I say, right? But this is the truth. This is why these things happen. And that's one of the things that I mean when I say we live in a right-handed world. You know? I mean, even if you're left-handed, if you're a photographer and you're using a professional camera that has the shutter on your right index finger here, then you're not going to be looking through the left viewfinder and right? I mean, and so your eye itself will be imbalanced visually, and so then the musculature will change, and it can go to the extremities, to the tips of the toes, the tips of the fingers. So this is the human body, and this is why we're so big. This is why I say that phrase, In the Image Clothing Company is going to be huge, because it already is. In the Image Clothing Company is huge because we just made a video. I mean, me, as far as I'm the only human being speaking this, but as a company, as a community, as the familial place we are, four sides to us as a whole, In the Image Clothing Company, I just spoke on something that can change people's entire lives and give them understandings of maybe tweaks of approaches they can have to things that they can do, and that in itself will change their entire lives. The body only will ever do what it does. There you go. The visual system, centered at the nose, centered at all the skin that's around both of the eyes, ideally evenly being able to wink left to right, and yeah, we need to be intentional, about where we're looking with our actual visual system for the mechanics of the rest of our body's sake. So, yeah, but you tie your shoes unevenly, let's say, and you're always slightly looking toward one direction, right? So, external on the right, because of the shoelace, travels all the way up, and you're slightly looking off-centered always. And so now, everything you ever do, squinting when it's bright, right, focusing and trying to see things, all the musculature that we've discussed within this, because of needing to see visually, can be affected clear from your feet if you're not tying your shoes evenly over toward the inside. The human body as a whole, the only way it ever works. So, my name is Evan Strong, the founder of the four sides of In the Image Clothing Company. Today is Easter, the 20th of April, 2025. Thank you. Be intentional about your eyes, and I want to express my gratitude for explaining all this. Well, we've got glasses, right? Place glasses onto your face, and we need to be able to look in the entire perimeter of what our eyes would naturally do. And if you place frames of glasses around your eyes, you've now limited what you can see without going outside of the lens of the glasses. And so you probably just won't, because that's the point of the glasses, is to aid in changing what you're seeing to make it clearer for your own eyes. And so then limiting the motion of your eyes can limit the motion of the rest of your body, because if I'm going to look all the way left, then I can turn and be big and open. If I'm going to look all the way right, I can turn and be big and open. Still internal and still activated at the core, but it's like my expanse of motion is more mobile because I can see where I'm going to go before I go. But if you're within glasses frames and it's smaller than how you would naturally be able to see all the way around here, then you're going to have to turn your head to see because of getting around the frame of the glasses. And so now you've deactivated parts of your body premature. As in, you could have looked farther with your eyes before you'd have to use musculature of your body to get there. But to get around the glasses frame, you use the musculature of your body to get your eyeballs visually to see as far as they naturally could without that restriction. Okay, this is In The Image Clothing Company. Thank you.